What is going on, everybody? You got Matty Brolic here, and I am back, ladies and gentlemen, for a very big game. That's right, if you've been following my ITL run, you would have learned that last week we officially got an undefeated season by going 10-0. Essentially, we only played 9 games. We had 1 game against Gypsy we were supposed to play, but he was busy with some Smogon World Cup and some real life stuff, and he didn't have his team built in time, and Akki was really trying to make sure that everyone got their games in. So since we were running late, he was just like, you know what, I'll forfeit. You're the one who's undefeated, and also I don't have my team ready. So that was nice of him. But other than that, we did manage to go 9-0 in the other games, and definitely had a really fun season with this very powerful squad that we drafted. It's definitely not a perfect team. It's flawed in quite a bit of ways. It's definitely got some big holes, but it fits my style, which is very important, and it just has a lot of power to work with, which is fun in my opinion. That's the type of style that I like to play. So that is cool. We managed to get an undefeated season. That's something that I've definitely wanted since I started out in the draft format, and it is something that I am glad that we have accomplished, because I believe in the importance of consistency, because you could always squeak into the playoffs and hack some people, make it to the finals, or just kind of have a good streak going in the playoffs but have a pretty poor regular season, and have that type of season where maybe you hack people to get into the playoffs. So I always, bring that up because it's an important factor in my opinion. Consistency is really what makes a player good in Pokemon. Obviously, being able to win the big ones and not folding under pressure is another big factor in and of itself, but I do believe that consistency just truly demonstrates someone's skill, because if they have the ability to be that consistent, that says a lot about just their skill in general. So I was very happy to get the undefeated season, but of course my past playoff performances have either not been great or I've gotten hacked. So this is something that I want to try to rewrite for the ITL playoffs. I have I guess I've been doing a little bit better in playoffs recently. Like in the MPL, I won against a very tough matchup against Merc, and then I won the game against Gypsy, essentially. So, I guess in some of these bigger games lately, I've been doing better. But I have had a history of either blowing it when I get really close or just getting hacked out in the playoffs. So that is something that I would like to try to avoid, and I'd love to keep the wave of momentum going. And unfortunately for us, that's going to be very difficult to do, because we are matched up with, alright, I'm going to try to say it, Akki. He says, like, you want to say lucky without the L, so Akki. Is that it? I don't know. He'll tell me after he hears it. And that's apparently how it's pronounced, because I think I said it wrong in the last video. I always used to say Akki, because from where I'm from, we tend to pronounce A's like ah. So instead of ah, I would say Akki instead of Akki. But I believe it's Akki. I don't know. That's what I thought I said in the last video, but he said it wasn't right. So I'll wait till he gets to me about it again. So we're going up against the GOAT, a fellow Mount Rushmore member, and while this is something that's very hype, it is also something that is terrifying, because let me just give you a quick backstory about my man over here. We got put in the same division this season, and we played week 3, and we were both 2-0 going into week 3, which was kind of cool. I mean, it wasn't really an undefeated game of like epic proportions, because we were just 2-0, but winner stays undefeated, which is kind of cool. And we've been dying to play each other in the league where we both drafted our own teams. The only other time we got to play was ITL, I think last season, it was season 6. I had suggested that Zamrock join his league, and he allowed Zamrock in. Zam drafted a team, but he lost his first game and kind of rage quit. So for the week 2 game before Akki was able to replace Zamrock, I was like, if you want to just get this game played, I could step in and we could have a match, because we hadn't gotten to play at that point. So We played the game. It was a really good one, but he flinched me out with a Scarf Mamoswine on a Tapu Koko when, had he not flinched me there, I would have won the game. And that led to him just barely edging me out at the end, which it was still a really hype game, and that was one of the more fun games I've had in the format. But it would have been nice to obviously get the win. So we've been dying to get the chance to play each other where we both drafted our own teams and such, and now we got to this season earlier on in the season, and he didn't bring a full power squad. He brought something that, you know, was pretty good and it was nice and creative, but he was kind of holding back a little bit for a potential playoff matchup, because obviously that would be pretty likely since we're in the same conference. So that was a pretty good call on him, because I went pretty hard and we did win the game nice and clean, but we did kind of reveal some of our better strategies against him, because I really wasn't loving my matchup versus him, and I disliked it even a little bit more this time around now that we're playing in the playoffs. Yes, we went undefeated and didn't get the first round bye. Sebi VGC is also in our division. He went 10-0, and he had a better differential than we did, so he got the first round bye. And Akki over here went 5-5. He did not have his best season, but he really wasn't too invested. It wasn't like he was trying his hardest every game. He was just kind of like waiting for the season to be over with, but then he clinched the playoffs when he only had, I think, 4 wins or something. So he was like, I guess, you know, might as well try to peak for the playoffs. So he built a really scary squad for this game. He just has a really threatening team. It really reminds me of my MPL team last season, because even though I don't think the teams are necessarily super similar, we both had Celesteela, but although the teams aren't super similar on their own, I think that what's similar about them is they both have lots of terrifying threats that are really difficult to prep around, but it's kind of awkward to build with, and it just doesn't fit our respective styles. Like mine last season was a little too fat, didn't have a lot of momentum, stuff like that. It was just kind of awkward, and I'm sure Akki feels somewhat the same about his. I don't know exactly what his gripes are, but he just keeps saying he's just not a fan of this team, even though he knows that there are really good Pokemon on it. And I could see this whole season he just hasn't been having as much fun with his team building and stuff. So, regardless, it's a terrifying team, very difficult to prep for, especially the Mega Aerodactyl and the Hydreigon. Like, Hydreigon has such a good speed tier against me because I have a big gap between Tapu Lele, and then I have Kartana, Mega Gallade, and Selgor, but Hydreigon outspeeds everything else, and my only Dark Resist is Muck, and Muck really doesn't have a very good matchup against him, so Hydreigon is ridiculously threatening, and I also find it kind of important to EV my Gallade to be really bulky in this game, which means there's a very good chance that this Hydreigon is going to outspeed me, and that is annoying, because Hydreigon is one of the Z users, and I do kind of expect it to bring a Z move this game. Celesteela definitely has good Z options against me in this matchup as well, but I do like, or I do think Hydreigon is particularly pressuring with the Z moves in this game in tandem with something like Mega Aerodactyl, which outspeeds my whole team, including a Selgor, if he does decide to creep it. But just the fact that he has Mega Aero makes it less likely that I'm going to bring a Selgor, because it doesn't even have a great matchup in the first place. So, Mega Aero with 4 attacks, I do not possess a switch-in. My switch-in is right here in the middle of the screen. This Rotom Wash with a Citrus Berry, which, okay, let me explain. With the EVs, it's designed to come in after Stealth Rocks and have like a 96 or 98% chance to avoid a 2-hit KO from Adamant Stone Edge after the Citrus Berry, assuming that he does not crit me. So, obviously, we know Stone Edge has a higher chance of a crit, which makes that less likely for me to not get crit. Not like it's super likely that I'll get crit, but it is more likely than usual. And also, it's not even a guaranteed chance that, like for example, if he gets a roll, if he gets 2 rolls that are just so high after Stealth Rocks, then I get 2 KO'd by the arrow. Or if there's no Stealth Rocks up and I switch in and he just barely gets under 50%, then there's a really good chance he knocks me out on the next turn. So that is my switch in to Mega Aerodactyl, which is kind of ridiculous. And he could do things like Roost Up on Volt Switch if he does pack the Roost, and risking Hydro Pump is something that I'm not fully willing to do. Of course, I do have Hydro Pump on this set because it is nice for Arrow if I need it, but it's also really nice because both of his ground types, well, I should say he's got 3 ground types. He also has a Quagsire, but the ground types that are better versus my team, like Mamoswine and Nidoqueen, both get hit hard by the Hydro Pump. So I have those 2 moves. I have Hidden Power Flying for the Chestnut because, and I also have Defog because I think his best way to go about this match is by stacking kind of early and then allowing things like Hydreigon and Aerodactyl to just pressure me immensely. And having Defog plus something like HP Flying for the Chestnut to either pick it off or do major damage, or even pop a Copa Berry because I do have Aerial Ace on Kartana. Those things are pretty big. So that's my only switch into Aerodactyl. And then my pseudo switch into Hydreigon is a Citrus Berry Stunfisk, which also is likely to it's likely to get its Citrus popped and guaranteed to avoid the 2-hit KO from Specs Hydreigon, Timid Specs Hydreigon, which would allow me to get a Thunder Wave off on it, which could be big because, like I said, it outspeeds my Lele and my Gallade. So that's kind of the idea with the Stunfisk set, but the Stunfisk is also more physically defensive to also check things like offensive or physically offensive Celesteela, as well as Mega Arrow. So Mega Arrow with Aqua Tail just does way too much damage to Stunfisk, so for me to consider it to be a safe switch-in. So that's why Rotom is the primary switch-in, but Ferrothorn over here is, you know, it looks like I brought a decent defensive core, but Ferrothorn is actually my hazard lead. It's EV to live a max Adamant Fire Frame from Mega Aerodactyl 100% of the time, as well as a max special attack Timid Flamethrower from Hydreigon, because he has 0 reason to bring Fire Blast here, unless he does expect me to try to, you know, avoid a 2-hit KO with, or avoid a KO with Flamethrower with Ferrothorn, because the 2 things that he's going to want to hit with Flamethrower are Ferrothorn and Kartana. Obviously, usually Dark Pulse does enough to Kartana anyway, but if he just wanted to be safe, Flamethrower is obviously going to kill. It's going to kill like 10 Kartanas, and then you know, even if Ferrothorn does, just like, for example, Ferrothorn needs to have so much Spadef to live something like a Flamethrower from Hydreigon, so if I have any chip damage on me at all, there's a good chance Ferrothorn is going to go down, but because I'm going to lead with it, I won't have that chip damage. So I have Stealth Rock, Knockoff, and Toxic. Knockoff could be really nice for a potential Porygon too. It could be nice for Celesteela. It could be nice for a lot of his threats, whereas Toxic could be really nice against something like Frostlass, because I have the Mental Herb on this Ferrothorn, so I can get at my Rocks turn 1, and then I can do something like Gyro Ball, and if he looks to go for something like Destiny Bond, I could potentially Toxic it on the next turn and have him go down to Toxic. And then that is my Ferrothorn set. Getting up rocks early really puts my big breakers like Gallade and Tapu Lele in a good spot to potentially have a Scarf Kartana, because that's what I am, to clean up later. My Mega Gallade is a slow but bulky Adamant Gallade with a pretty good amount of attack, and it does have a pretty good matchup against his team. Fizz Def Clef can shrug off attacks fairly easily, but if he's Magic Guard, then +2. Gallade is going to do a lot, and either way, if I'm in Psychic Terrain, Unaware, and Magic Guard, Fizz Def Clef both get 2 KO'd by Zen Headbutt, but if he is Unaware and has Protect, then that is going to allow him to most likely avoid a 2 KO from Zen Headbutt, but there's also Rocks to account for, so Gallade under Psychic Terrain is a huge threat, but I also have Destiny Bond for the Clef, because Clef is definitely his best check to Gallade, and I do kind of expect the Unaware to come, as SD Gallade is just so good against his team, and even though Magic Guard is a big threat to me, it's just so hard for him to check Gallade at all, so I do expect the Unaware to come, and Destiny Bond could be a nice tech to catch him off guard. It's also nice versus something like a Cosmic Power Clefable if it gets out of hand, and I'm just like fishing for flinches, and then all of a sudden I'm in range of Moonblast, and I'm able to go for Moonblast or Stored Power, whatever it is. I'm able to go for Destiny Bond and catch him off guard. I definitely think that could be a good tech here. And then I'm just Swords Dance Dual Stabs. My Tapu Lele, I am Choice Specs, but I am pretty bulky. I have enough HP to live a Mega Aerodactyl's Stone Edge after Stealth Rock's guaranteed unless he crits me. So that is pretty nice. And Spec Psychic just murders his team. If I have Stealth Rocks up Porygon 2, even with max special defense, is a guaranteed 2 KO. And Celesteela is taking a huge chunk. Even if he is specially defensive, he's taking like 35, which is crazy. So this Tapu Lele is nice. I do have Psyshock as well. I also have Moonblast and Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt is really nice for the Celesteela. And if he doesn't bring his grounds, or if I knock out one of his grounds, Thunderbolt is quite nice against his team. And I do have Moonblast also just because of the Hydreigon, and it is a pretty good stab against his team in general. So pretty simple Tapu Lele set, but the spread is definitely kind of nice. It outspeeds Nidoqueen as well, which is cool. Then next up we have, like I said, the Rotom, and then I have the Ferrothorn and Stunfisk. Ferrothorn is going to be my lead. At Team Preview, I am pretty scared of what he brought because, like I said, hazard stacking against me is what I think is his best chance to win. And he's got the Frostlass here, which means he may very well have spikes on it. But also, I am considering the fact that he may have Scarf Frostlass, because Scarf Kartana is so good at picking off his team that a Scarf Frostlass would be nice. And Scarf Frostlass actually has a pretty good matchup against my team. I do have Muck, but like I said, it just doesn't have a good matchup against him. And if he could play his cards right around Muck anyway, then Scarf Frostlass is very good against me, because my biggest offensive threats to him in Gallade, Kartana, and Lele all get blown away by Scarf Frostlass. So that is definitely a big threat, and the rest of his team is just very, very scary. Mamoswine, I don't have a switch in except for kind of Rotom, but the thing is I really need that to switch into Arrow. He's got Celesteela, which is very, very threatening against my team, especially if he does a good job pressuring me with these two right here. So we will get into this battle, round 1 of the ITL Season 7 playoffs, and see if the Los Angeles Reshirems are able to keep the undefeated streak going. So let's get right into this, as I lead with Bailey, the Hugger, the Ferrothorn, as we both just go right for our Stealth Rocks here. Now here, I really kind of considered going for either knockoff, there. I didn't want to reveal the Toxic, but I wanted to go for knockoff there, and I tried to cancel, but it was too late, as I went for the Gyro Ball, because I kind of forgot about the Endeavor right away. And here I'm like, oh no, like that's not good, he can just Endeavor me here. But here he goes right into the Hydreigon, actually, and I go for the Gyro Ball, and that does a pretty good chunk to him. Now, I was pretty tempted to click Gyro Ball again here, but I decided to go for Toxic because he, with that damage, there's a good chance he's going to be able to roost off the Gyro Balls here, and just getting the Toxic damage off on this Hydreigon can be nice for generally not allowing it to like roost on me, taunt, whatever it is, because the fact that he's got the leftovers here definitely was something I wasn't expecting because of how good of an offensive matchup it has against me. So I'm going to go for the Toxic here, as he actually goes for Torment. So I had the Mental Herb there. Had I gone for Gyro Ball, I would have been able to knock him out, because what Torment does, if you guys don't know, it doesn't allow you to use the same attack 2 times in a row. So even though it doesn't work where, like, okay, he torments me, I get the Gyro Ball off, then I can't use Gyro Ball again. No, I wouldn't have been able to use Gyro Ball that turn. So that would have been pretty cool had it worked for him, because then on the next turn he could have subbed up, which he did have Substitute, and I would not have been able to break the sub if I wasn't Mental Herb Pharaoh. But because I was Mental Herb, I would have been able to just knock him out right there. But I do get the Toxic off, which means I can go for Gyro Ball again here. And I don't lose much by going for Gyro Ball. So he goes for the Dark Pulse, and he does get a flinch here, which kind of stinks, because if that was a lower roll, I don't know his exact spread with Hydreigon, then that will be annoying if he knocks me out the next turn. So it also just does damage to my Ferrothorn, which is annoying. So here he goes for Substitute, knowing that he will die to the Poison, just being a nice guy and dying to the Toxic. He didn't have to do that, and I told him he didn't have to, especially because he's not that type to restart and whatnot, but he was being a good guy, so I appreciate that. As even though, as you know, like, that pretty much made up for the fact that he got the flinch there, so that was nice for him to do. Maybe it has to do with the fact that last game when we played, I got 2 important Zen Headbutt flinches, but I like Swords Dance with Gallade both times just to allow him to get his hits off, because I wanted to make sure we had a clean game. So I appreciate the reciprocation there. That was very nice. Now, he goes into his Aerodactyl, and I don't want to switch in Rotom this early because I'm in a decent enough spot, I feel, to preserve my Rotom's HP and allow it to either take on the Aerodactyl later or take on the Celesteela later. So I am going to allow my Ferrothorn to stay in here, and I know he's probably going to be able to knock me out with either a Wing Attack or a Fire Fang, but that's okay because he gets a little more chip on him with attacking me with a contact move. So he does go for the Fire Fang and he knocks me out. So that is fine. As here I go into Kartana. I'm just gonna click Smart Strike here because even though allowing him to go into Celesteela is scary because this thing could just be such a crazy offensive threat against my team, especially if he's Grassy MZ. The Smart Strike will tell me some things about his set and his spread, and I do have Stunfisk, which is bulky enough to live a Grassy MZ after Stealth Rock here. So if I do come in and he autotomizes, then I will be able to live the Grassy MZ and get up a big hit. And if he does go for an attack and put me in range of Grassy MZ, either I could pivot out or I could just let my Stunfisk go down, but then come back in and pressure Celesteela with something else, which is nice. So I'm going to go for the Smart Strike here, as he does just sack off the Mamoswine at 1%. Good play, as here he does go into his Celesteela. And now I go right into Gallade, and I'll explain this, because even though Celesteela is a big offensive threat, and obviously he's a flying type, which means he could do quite a bit of damage to Gallade, I'm really not expecting him to be Flying EMZ here, because if he wants to break past my flying checks, I am expecting Grassy MZ to be a lot more likely. And if he's a physical Celesteela, then I think there's a good chance either doesn't have a flying move at all, because acrobatics doesn't really work well with Z moves. He could potentially go fly, but does Celesteela get fly? I think it does. But he could potentially go fly, but that's just not a very reliable move in the first place. And yeah, I'm thinking there's a good chance he will not be Flying EMZ on this set, because he might want to go with the acrobatics if he is physical, and if he's special, I think it's a lot more likely he'd be Grassium or just some other item. So I'm going to go hard into Gallade, because if he does go right for the Autotomize here, I actually have a pretty decent chance to live max special attack modest Flying EMZ Air Slash after Stealth Rocks, which is pretty crazy because I even my Gallade to be so bulky. And if he's not max special attack modest, then I have a really good chance to live it. And if he does something like go for an Autotomize here, he can go for Air Slash, but he cannot flinch me because I have the Inner Focus, and he also cannot even knock me out with a crit. So I'll be able to get a big close combat off on him, which puts me in a good spot. So I go right into my Gallade here, as he actually makes a fantastic double going into Clefable. And that covers two things. It covers my Stunfisk pretty well, which is my likely switch into Celesteela, and it also covers Gallade. And if he predicted Gallade to come in, that was, really, really good, because I really didn't think he'd expect me to go hard Gallade on a Celesteela. So kudos to him if he did kind of expect that. So he goes right into his Clefable, and because I'm so bulky on this Gallade, and because I don't need my HP that much on this anymore, because he doesn't have Hydreigon anymore, and also Mamoswine, I'm going to go right for the Zen Headbutt here, just to try to get an idea of what his set is. I do have a feeling he's going to be Fizz Def, and that reveals to me he's definitely like max Fizz Def as I get the flinch. And that is really annoying for him, because, I don't know what he went for. I believe it was Moonblast, but I don't know for sure. And that flinch definitely does not do him any favors. I asked him if he wanted me to go for another move to allow him to get the attack that he was about to go for off, and he said that, no, it's fine. I did offer, but he said no, so I was like, okay, if you insist. So I go right into my Tapu Lele, because if he does Moonblast me, he has a 30% chance to lower my special attack. Not the end of the world. Would be annoying, but still not too big of a deal, as I also think he's going to want to try to recover here, as he does just go for the Moonlight. Now, here is where I'm starting to think that I have this game in checkmate, because if I go for Spec Psychic here, with my spread, I should be able to Oko this Clef, and then if he wants to go into Scarf Frostlass, he doesn't kill me with Shadow Ball, I knock that out, which is great for Kartana. If he goes into Aerodactyl and goes for Stone Edge, he needs to crit me to knock me out because of how much HP that I have. So his only play would be going Celesteela, and from the range Celesteela is at, there is a good chance that Spec Psychic is going to put him in guaranteed range of Scarf Kartana's Sacred Sword. And +2 Celesteela does not outspeed Scarf Kartana. So that would pretty much put the game in checkmate for me. So I do the calc, and it says based on his spread from me Zen headbutting him with Gallade, he's almost definitely max Fizz Def. And this should be min roll 100%. But what I didn't take into account was that I switched my Lele spread because I really forwent. I don't know if that would be the word. When you forgo something. I really kind of forgoed. I don't know what the word would be. A Nidoqueen switch in because I felt I just didn't have room to fit a Nidoqueen switch in, but by having a hyper offensive team that pressured it a lot, I felt I could play around it. And because that, I gave Gallade and Lele a little bit more speed to creep something like Nidoqueen. And I had to give Lele a lot more speed than I had to give Gallade because Gallade's naturally faster. So I had to take a lot of special attack off my Tapu Lele. So because of that, this roll became more of like a 95% to like 111, 114, whatever it was, on this Clefable. So even though the roll is still heavily in my favor, it's a 70% chance to Oko from here. So it's not guaranteed, and I thought it was guaranteed. So I go for Psychic here, and we do not get the rolls. It does 97.5%, and he gets the special attack drop with the Moonblast, which that's kind of bad just because it puts me in, or I can't do nearly enough damage to Celesteela to put it in guaranteed range of Scarf Kartana's Sacred Sword, which could be bad. So the special attack drop is annoying, but the fact that he lived was really annoying and got this damage off. As if I knocked him out here, then his only he could have tried to go an arrow saying, okay, he's probably in, it's a roll for Stone Edge to kill, but it wasn't a roll for Stone Edge to kill. So that was pretty big, and it kind of makes up for the flinch a little bit. But, you know, hacks doesn't always work that way. It's more complicated than that, but at least it makes up in some regard because this is pretty big, as like I said, pretty much had him in checkmate there. So here I'm just going to finish him off with the Psychic, as now he's going to go into the Frostlass. Now, I'm thinking either he's going to want to just go for a Spike here, because that puts Autotomy Celesteela in a better position to win, or he's going to just go right for the Shadow Ball, which is almost a guaranteed knockout if he's max special attack here. Min roll is like 54 from Shadow Ball. So I'm just going to stay in here because I don't really have a switch in, and my Lele can't live a hit from Aerodactyl anymore anyway, so I'm just going to stay in Psychic, because if he does Spike up here, then my Stunfisk should be able to handle the Celesteela enough to the point where I should be good, but it just really depends on his set. If he is Gracium, this is going to be difficult, so I am going to stay in here and go for the Psychic, as he does just knock me out with the Shadow Ball. Now I'm expecting him to be Scarf, so there's no way I'm going to go into Kartana and risk that, because that's definitely my most important mon at this moment. So I'm going to go into Gallade, and this is where the Moonblast, or the flinch on Clefable, really mattered, because I would be in range of Shadow Ball here had he gotten off a Moonblast. So I'm just going to stay in here and go for a Zen Headbutt, because if he goes into Celesteela and I Zen Headbutt that, that's going to go down, and Close Combat is going to knock him out. So here he goes in his Aerodactyl, and I'm just going to stay in and click Close Combat. He knocks me out with the Wing Attack, and here, this was a tough call. I decided to go into my Rotom, but it was a tough call because I could have gone Kartana. His Aerodactyl was almost definitely in range of Sacred Sword, which would put me at +1, meaning I do a ton of damage to Celesteela, not allowing him to you know, autotomize up twice or anything like that. Or not that he would have to, but it would just put him so low that he'd be in range of any attack from my Rotom or my Stunfisk. But I was just a little afraid of him maybe being a really fast Celesteela with Gracium, because if he was that, then and with special attacking nature, then I would have a chance at losing. And also, if he was a really bulky Aerodactyl, which he can afford against me potentially, then the Sacred Sword could have been a roll. But Kartana probably was my safest bet, because if this arrow has Roost here and I Volt Switch out and he Roosts up, then all of a sudden I have to go back into that same spot where I have to go back into Kartana. But then from there, I might have to click Smart Strike, depending on how bulky he is and how well he takes the Volt Switch. So, because he does have the Fire Fang and he has the Wing Attack, I am pretty confident that he's not going to have the Roost here. And even if he does, I still have a pretty good chance to win by going about the plays I just mentioned. So I feel this is my best chance, as I would like to have the Scarf Kartana in the back just in case to outspeed the Celesteela. So I am going to go right for the Volt Switch here, as a Stone Edge crit will not be able to knock me out here. And we get the Citrus Berry recovery, which is great, depending on what his Celesteela set is. As here I go right into the Stunfisk, as I could live a Grass EMZ from here, and a Thunderbolt should put him in range of Scarf Kartana's Sacred Sword, and Rotom should outspeed an Autotomized Celesteela, because his Celesteela, there's no way he's going to try to, like, I think he's just going to try to outspeed my fastest Pokemon, like Gallade. Obviously, I have a Selgor, but I think he's just going to try to outspeed something like Max Gallade or one of my slower potential Scarfers. But I don't really have a speed tier that, because like after Rotom, it's a pretty big drop off. So I think he's going to outspeed it to, he's going to EV it to outspeed anything other than like Scarf Rotom and above. So because of that, then my Rotom should be able to outspeed this. So even if he does, even if he is out of range of a Sacred Sword after this Thunderbolt, then Rotom still should be able to outspeed, because he's not going to be able to Autotomize and then attack my Stunfisk twice, because Thunderbolt's going to either knock him out in 2 hits or put him in range of Sacred Sword from Kartana. So he goes for the Autotomize, as we go for the Thunderbolt, and we actually get a critical hit, which reveals that he's weakness policy, which is really cool. But we essentially had this game in the bag, because even without the crit, he would have been in range of Sacred Sword unless I got, I don't know the exact roll, but I would have had to get in a really low roll, or he would have had to crit my Rotom Wash with +2 Acrobatics. Because of the fact that I was Citrus Berry, I am out of range of that guaranteed. So he goes for +2 Earthquake, and that doesn't even knock us out, as Godfisk is able to take the hit and get the KO. And the Los Angeles Reshirems move on to the semifinals of the ITL Season 7 after taking down a fellow Mount Rushmore member. And that was a really fun game. My heart was racing through most of it. I think we did play it pretty well, other than maybe turn 1 where we probably should have knocked off the Mamoswine. But it did work out for us, because he kind of made the wrong play. Or at least he feels he made the wrong play by switching out his Mamoswine instead of endeavoring my Ferrothorn. It worked out for us well, because then his Mamoswine could knock him into rocks again, which was great. So it did. Essentially, we played it perfectly, and despite the matchup being pretty tough, I am happy with the way I built it. I felt that I always had a chance to win if I played my cards right. So definitely pretty satisfied with how this game went. I feel as though I've been gypped out from like a really, really good game against Akki this season, because I don't feel as though he put in his full effort in either of these games that we played. Because the first one, he just kind of wanted to keep some strategies low for the playoffs, and then for this game, I think he was just kind of burnt out and ready for the season to end. So he didn't disrespect me by bringing like complete memes or anything, but he did bring a pretty like fire hot team, which could work really well, but you know, probably wasn't his ideal team that he would have built had he been really, really invested. So regardless, he's still always a tough opponent, because his creativity is really good and he's just a very good player. So I had a blast playing him here, and I'm really glad we were able to get the win, because now we get to do something which I don't think anyone in the draft format has been able to do before, which is play an undefeated semifinals match, where it's 2 teams that have gone 10-0, well, for me essentially 11-0 now, getting to play in the semifinals. So winner moves on to the finals, and the loser at least made it that far without losing a game all season, which is pretty cool. So I'm definitely excited for that. I didn't get the chance to play Sebi this season, obviously, because we both don't have a loss. So I am looking forward to it. This will be my first time getting to play him, and he's a very tough opponent with some broken Pokemon like Mega Kangaskhan, Landorus, Incarnate with Sheer Force, and Toxapex. So should be an interesting one. Haven't looked at my matchup yet, but you know, let's get it. Let's go for it. I really want to win that game and move on to the finals and play the winner of Nova and Helmi versus Gypsy. So I definitely recommend you go check out their playoff game. I know Gypsy uploaded it. I don't know if they're uploading it on their own channels or not, but I know Gypsy uploaded it because he likes to do these live recordings for these games. So he's going to upload this live as well if you want to see how this one went down. And yeah, so LA Russia Rams move on to the semifinals, going up against Sebi VGC, undefeated clash, 10-0 versus 11-0. That's pretty hype. So stay tuned for that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm definitely looking forward to that next one. I'm definitely satisfied with how this game went. I think we played it really well. And despite maybe Akki not giving it his all, that is, you know, that's on him. That's nothing. There's nothing that I could do about that. And I do feel as even though the Moonblast or the Zen Headbutt flinch preventing the Moonblast really did matter, the fact that I got that low roll with Lele also did matter quite a bit as well, because they were both essentially, Zen Headbutt's a 20% chance to flinch, but he got a 30% chance to live, and that essentially gave him a chance to get back into this game. So at least it wasn't too hacksy of a game, and I don't feel like I won this. Like I got bailed out essentially. Sorry, my mouth is dry, so it's hard for me to speak as clearly. But yep, that's all I have to say. I once again hope you all enjoyed, but most importantly, I hope you have yourselves a fantastic day, and I will see you all in the next one later.